a man was walking along the beach and he saw a woman throwing things in the ocean. He asked her, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm throwing starfish in the ocean." He said, "Why?" He said, "Well, the sun is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them in, they'll die." He said, "Don't you realize that there are miles and miles of beach and there are starfish along every mile? You can't possibly make a difference." On hearing that, the woman bent down, picked up another starfish and threw it in the ocean. Then she said, "It made a difference for that one." Now keep that story in mind, and I'm going to talk about the AIDS orphans crisis in Zambia. I'm going to focus on three aspects. How bad is it? What's being done about it? And what can we do to help make a difference? Now, the AIDS orphans crisis is a result of the AIDS pandemic that has engulfed parts of Africa. The UN reports 16.3 million people have died. The amount of deaths now exceeds the amount of people that died in World War I. In World War I, they finally had an armistice to stop the slaughter. So far, there's been no equivalent to stop the AIDS pandemic. 1.3 million died last year. 1 million are likely to die this year. The rivers of death keep flowing. The pandemic has created 16.6 million orphans. On a relative basis, no country has been hit harder than Zambia. Zambia is located in the southern part of Africa, and it's in size, here it is on my atlas. In size, it's a little bigger than the state of Texas. It has 12.9 million people. Now, the U.S. State Department estimates that there are 850,000 AIDS orphans in Zambia. That's 6.5% of the population, 1 out of every 15 people. Now, to put it in perspective, the amount of AIDS orphans in Zambia in relation to the overall population is the same as it would be in California if the cities of San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento consisted of nothing but AIDS orphans. In Africa, a child is orphaned by AIDS every 15 seconds. By the time I'm done with this 10-minute speech, there'll be 40 more orphans. Now that you know the gravity of the situation, what's being done to help the orphans? Now in Zambia, the majority of orphans get help are cared for by relatives, usually grandmothers. However, this system has severe limitations. One, there's just the sheer number of orphans. Second, the caregivers are themselves aging, many in bad health. I think the average life expectancy in the world is 67 years. In Zambia, it's 38. Third, 70% of Zambians live in poverty, which per the World Bank is having less than $1.25 a day to spend. Now, here's the encouraging news. There are charitable organizations that are trying to help the orphans. An outstanding example is AFNet Aid. AFNet Aid is a private nonprofit that focuses on helping AIDS orphans. Since 2001, they've successfully established an orphanage and 3 orphan daycare centers, and when able, they also distribute care packages that are distributed through the schools, usually of food and blankets. And their unique feature is that they partner with local schools and churches to find out which orphans are most in need of care and to help them run the programs. Now that I've told you how bad the problem is, what's being done about it, now like the woman in the starfish story, what can we do to help make a difference? I would suggest that we contribute to one of these organizations that are helping AIDS orphans. They rely upon individual donations to fund their projects. For example, AFNet Aid has opened a new orphan daycare center in Mansa, which is in northern Zambia. It's their 4th. And recently they had a registration day. About 80 orphans signed up for the program. Now the challenge is to find sponsors to provide donations to pay the way of each of the orphans that signed up. And here's this is the orphan daycare center. Now it provides after-school care, and then there's teachers there to provide help with homework and additional instruction. Here for the teachers, And you'll see on the blackboard is written the name of the center, Isabella Liabana, which means hope for the children. Oh. Here's a teacher with her class. And besides learning the elements, there's fun activities like singing and games. And all kids like to draw. And there's vocational instruction so they learn job skills. Now, besides the Orphan Center, make sure they attend school and make sure the children get adequate nutrition and adequate health care. There's also care for younger siblings, like the one on the screen, while the older ones are at school. And each child there gets one full meal a day. And also sometimes food parcels to take home. This is mealtime. As you can see, they're always hungry for more. Now, the center also can counsel the children and look after personal problems. It tries to do the things that a parent would do for a child. Now, it's been determined that $35 a month per child will fund the center. Now, out of that's paid for the child's care, education, and also they pay for their tuition at school, their uniform at their primary school, pay for shoes, all that, and meals at the center. That's all taken care of out of that $35 a month. Now, so far, they've gotten, AFNet Aid has gotten sponsors for about 1/3 of the children who signed up for the program. So they need more donors, and this presents a golden opportunity for some of us where we could really help make a difference. Now, $35, that's about $1.16 a day. That's less than the cost of a cup of coffee. Instead, you could provide a cup of hope to an orphan. Now, AFNet Aid has its own website, www.afnetaid.org, or you can get information at the Santa Cruz Cares website. Now, doing a donation will put smiles on their faces, or cause elation is what we're going to get. You might get a pen pal, or a thank you. Now, if you're real lucky, you might get a dried caterpillar, which is a favorite local delicacy. Now, AFNet Aid has a 501c3 status so that donations can be deductible. And I didn't want to distract you while I was giving the speech, but afterwards I'll pass out a packet of further information that you can take a look at. Now, I've talked about how many orphans there are and what's being done about it, and then I challenged you to help by trying to contribute to an organization such as AFNet Aid. As I spoke, some of you may have had this question in your mind. Since there are so many orphans, what difference is it going to make to help the relatively few number of orphans at this center? My answer is that you have to start somewhere. Like the woman in the starfish story, you can make a difference by saving one child at a time.